So the future depends upon Trump. It's as blunt as that.
He will have to do much in order to assure that the agreement is implemented and to decide who will replace Hamas. So it is the role of the American administration, first and foremost, to see what is the replacement for Hamas. And in my view, the main replacement for Hamas is the Palestinian Authority.
In your view, the best replacement for Hamas in Gaza is the Palestinian Authority. Would that be acceptable to Netanyahu? He's never shown any fondness or keenness to bring the PA into Gaza.
It depends on Trump. If this is the Trump administration decision to bring back the PLO or the Palestinian authorities, and then with the backing of the Gulf states and others, then I believe that Netanyahu will accept it.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch the interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.
Hello and welcome to a special interview for The Wire. The Israel-Hamas deal came into operation yesterday after a hitch that delayed the start by almost 3 hours. And that raises certain fundamental questions. How fragile is the deal? Could it still be easily scuppered by either side? Will it lead to a permanent ceasefire and Israel's complete withdrawal from Gaza? And with at least 3 cabinet resignations, what does the future look like for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? Joining me from Tel Aviv to discuss these issues is Israel's former Justice Minister, Yossi Beilin. Mr. Beilin, the Israel-Hamas deal came into operation yesterday after a hitch that delayed the start by almost 3 hours. So let me start by asking, in your eyes, how fragile is this deal?
I will be surprised if the first part of the deal will not be implemented. There are always things like that, delay, technical delays or whatever. I do not attribute to it too much significance. At the end of the day, it was implemented yesterday, and I hope and believe that it will be also implemented in the coming days. But I think that the main issue is the issue of the negotiations on the permanent ceasefire, and on the one hand, the promises of Netanyahu to the right wing in his government that you alluded to, that after the first part, if the Palestinians or the Hamas is breaching the agreement, it will be a good enough reason for Israel to relaunch the war. And on the other hand, his promises to the mediator, to Trump, that he will, of course, implement the agreement. So he will be torn between those promises, and here I'm very worried about the future of the agreement.
I want very much to pursue precisely the point you're making. But before I do, let me just get confirmation. You are personally very confident that the first phase of the deal, which lasts for 42 days, when some 33 Israeli hostages will be released and perhaps as many as 737 Palestinian prisoners will be released, you're pretty confident that first phase will go through. We might have technical hitches and delays, but the phase will happen and it will go through.
Exactly.
Let's
Exactly.
come to that second stage. At a press conference yesterday, Sunday, Foreign Minister Gideon Saar called the deal a temporary ceasefire. Many people picked up on that phrase. Is that all it is? Is it just an expanded version of the ceasefire we saw in November 2023? In other words, is it just phase one and there's little prospect of phase two happening?
Yes, because first of all, I agree that it is a temporary one. The question is what will happen later on. Many in Israel try to convince the government to take decisions about the morning after the war. The Bibi's governments never did it. And he let it open and said, I don't want neither Hamas nor Abbas, meaning not the PLO and not Hamas. But the actually what it means is that it will be us, it will be the IDF, it will be the Israel, which will remain in Gaza, and that is crazy. It is awful. I mean, I really hope that something like that will not happen. But what will happen is unknown, and for the time being, the void is filled by Hamas. So if we go through the motions, implement the second phase, negotiate about implement the first phase, and after 16 days begin the negotiations on the second phase, with whom are we going to negotiate this second phase? With Hamas, indirectly. And it means that Hamas will remain there. The main aim of this war was to prevent Hamas from governing Gaza. And we talked about it quite a lot. So if at the end of the war, Hamas is the one which remains in Gaza and responsible for Gaza, what did we do?
But that aim of the war to eliminate and dismantle Hamas clearly hasn't happened. The scenes that we saw yesterday, when the 3 Israeli hostages were being released, of maybe hundreds of Hamas fighters holding assault rifles with green bandanas on their head, clearly show that Hamas fighters are not vanquished. Hamas may be weakened, Hamas may be debilitated, but it's not vanquished. And Hamas, therefore, is still there.
Right, and for a terrorist organization, it's mere existence, it's mere survival after such confrontation with such a big military power like Israel is a kind of a victory for them. So they can sell their people that it's a victory, although Gaza was destroyed, and they may remain in power. If they remain in power, then the West and also the Gulf states will not be involved in Gaza. They will not put money again in restructuring Gaza, knowing that there might be a war in a short while and everything will be again destroyed. And they will not put foot on the ground because boots on the ground because it will be a war zone. So I'm very worried about the second phase of the agreement. I don't know how can it be implemented, and I think that we should be prepared already now, especially I'm speaking about the West, especially about the Trump new administration, about what should happen there. How should Hamas be replaced?
But
This is the main issue.
more than just that the second phase may not happen, there is also a clear implication here that the second objective of the war, which was to dismantle and eliminate Hamas, hasn't been achieved. That second objective hasn't been achieved. All that is being achieved at the moment is the return of the hostages. 33 will come back during phase one. We don't know what will happen to the remaining 64, 65, how many are alive, how many will be returned. But secondly, the objective of dismantling Hamas clearly hasn't happened. To that extent, the war has failed.
I mean, Hamas is not the same Hamas that launched the crazy massacre on October 7th. So it is, and the leader is not there, and many leaders of Hamas are not there. So Hamas is wounded and hurt seriously. But if somebody thought about the elimination of Hamas, it was not eliminated and will not be eliminated.
But if you really mean that Hamas will not be eliminated, then what do you make of what Gideon Sa'ar said yesterday? He said Israel remains committed to dismantling Hamas's governmental and military capabilities. Now,
That's something else. That is something else. It is not elimination of Hamas. It's preventing them from governing the Gaza Strip. And here, although I don't agree with many of what Gideon Sa'ar is saying, here it is true. I mean, I think that also Trump doesn't want to see Hamas governing Gaza. And it doesn't mean that you should now kill everybody in Hamas. But and I also hear that Hamas itself understands that it should not be the governing power in Hamas. They should step back.
But is the objective of dismantling Hamas's governmental and military capabilities, even if that is not eliminating Hamas, but it is simply dismantling Hamas's capacity, is that in keeping with the deal that's been signed, or does it run counter to the deal? Because this is not part of the deal's specific details.
Well, the deal should be negotiated. I mean, as you said exactly, what is agreed upon is the first part. About the second part, it's the beginning of negotiations. And I think that here it will be very tough negotiations. I don't think that it will be easy to go for an agreement, to have an agreement at the end of the negotiations. But part of the end should be that Hamas will not govern Gaza.
You have repeatedly said that you believe negotiating the second part of the deal will be very difficult. That negotiation starts on the 16th day after the start of the deal. In other words, it starts in 15 days' time.
Right.
What are the chances that, in fact, Israel and Hamas will fail to agree to terms that can make phase two happen? What are the chances there will be no phase two?
Significant. I mean, what is the point here? You don't expect Hamas to negotiate its stepping back or something like that. I think so. The negotiations will not be, of course, between Israel and Hamas around the table. Israel, it will be the United States, and it will be Qatar and Egypt, and Israel and Hamas will be behind the scene. Now, then here these negotiations will be very, very important. Maybe there is a chance that the mediators close to Hamas will convince them to step back. If this doesn't happen, they don't leave Gaza to somewhere else, as it was with the PLO, and you remember it, which left Lebanon to Tunisia in 82. If something like this doesn't happen, then I think that we are in bad shape. We are in bad shape because then the war will continue. And God knows what might happen in this war. What are we going to do there? Kill more Hamas people? It won't change the situation. So it is the role of the American administration, first and foremost, to see what is the replacement for Hamas. And in my view, the main replacement for Hamas is the Palestinian Authority.
In your view, the best replacement for Hamas in Gaza is the Palestinian Authority. Would that be acceptable to Netanyahu? He's never shown any fondness or keenness to bring the PA into Gaza.
It depends on Trump. If this is the Trump administration decision to bring back the PLO or the Palestinian authorities, and then with the backing of the Gulf states and others, then I believe that Netanyahu will accept it. He is saying many things. He said also that he will never leave the passage here, the passage there, Nasarim, Philadelphia, and he is living there. He promised to leave these areas. He said that he will not be for a Palestinian state, and he supported the Palestinian state. In the Trump plan of 5 years ago, you have a Palestinian state on 84% of the area of the West Bank, and he adored it. He was so much supportive of this plan. So I can't tell you in advance. I mean, he's an opportunist, and he believes that Trump supports him and is a friend of him. Between us, I'm not sure about it, but this is what he thinks, and it will be much more difficult for Netanyahu to oppose Trump than to oppose Biden.
But you're saying a very important thing, Mr. Beilin. You're saying the future of the deal that began yesterday. When I say the future, I mean whether there's a phase 2, whether there's a permanent ceasefire, whether Israel withdraws from Gaza in toto. All of that entire component of phase 2 depends upon President Trump. If Trump put pressure on Netanyahu, it will happen. If Trump were to say that he's happy for the Palestine Authority to take over control in Gaza, it will happen. But if Trump does not, there will be no phase 2 and the war will continue.
I don't exclude what you said, quoting me.
So the future depends upon Trump. It's as blunt as that.
He will have to do much in order to assure that the agreement is implemented and to decide who will replace Hamas.
So we face a double choice at the end of the 6 weeks of phase 1. Either Trump has put pressure on Netanyahu, and Netanyahu agrees to withdraw, the PLO or the Palestine Authority take control of Gaza, or there is no phase 2, the war will resume, and Netanyahu's already claimed that he has Trump's backing to resume the fighting if it's necessary.
I'm not sure whether these are the exact words of Trump. I think that Trump wants very much this agreement to succeed. He is dreaming about the Nobel Prize and things like that. And this is and he's so proud of his part in the process now, which I believe is not as significant as he describes it, but still he's so proud of it. So be it. He will continue and put pressure on the parties to not to get back to war. This is clear. I presume that Netanyahu got from him an understanding that if the Hamas is breaching the agreement, he will not be against Israel retaliating or something like that. I don't know exactly what happened there, but it is not that Trump said to Netanyahu, "You will be the referee, and if you think that Hamas doesn't implement the agreement, I will have nothing against you fighting and killing and having a war."
But the interesting thing is, you believe Trump's ambition or quest for a Nobel Prize will mean that he will put pressure to ensure that there is a phase 2. And if that means putting pressure to accept the Palestine Authority in Gaza, he will do that. In other words, his desire for a Nobel Prize, his ambition, his quest will push him in this direction.
You know, he refers to the Nobel Prize, but it is more than that. He wants to be an important person and he wants to have a legacy. is very questionable. He is not very much appreciated as a leader in the world, in the West world. And he wants to prove that he can do things that others fail to do. And of course, I would never vote for somebody like Trump. But if you ask me, I would encourage him to go this way and to promote peace. And if he succeeds, of course, I will salute him.
Let me raise another aspect of the problem that lies ahead. Ben Gvir and two of his ministers have already resigned from the government over the deal.
Thanks
Smotrich
heaven.
hasn't resigned, but Smotrich has said that if phase two happens, he could resign as well. In the circumstances, are there question marks about the future of the Netanyahu government?
Netanyahu doesn't have to be worried. I mean, he doesn't need this very extreme rightist in his government. I will never forgive him for nominating them as ministers. It was really a reckless decision of Netanyahu, and I thank heaven that Ben Gvir is not the minister of police anymore. It was crazy to put him in that position. But Netanyahu has the majority in the Knesset. I mean, if there is tomorrow a vote in the Knesset for his government, a confidence vote or a non-confidence vote, he will survive it because the opposition will support him.
My last question. I know and imagine that the people of Israel are in support of phase one of the deal because it brings 33 hostages back. What is the popular mood regarding phase two?
People don't want to get back to war. No question about it. They want to end the war, and they are very happy that the war has stopped. So you are right to ask this question because it is not only Trump, it is also the street. It is also the Israelis. To tell the Israelis after a few weeks of silence that they have to send their kids and grandkids to Gaza will not be obvious.
So, would Israeli public opinion accept the Palestine Authority coming to power and governing in Gaza in place of Hamas?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Especially if the alternative is that Israel will govern Gaza.
So, pressure from Trump, particularly with a view to getting the Nobel Prize for himself, and pressure from the street within Israel will both push Netanyahu towards accepting phase two in some shape or form and accepting the Palestine Authority as the controlling authority in Gaza.
Exactly.
Mr. Beilin, thank you very much for your insights and for helping us understand the huge challenge that lies ahead. Will there be a phase two? What would it amount to? What would it take to ensure that there is a phase two? I'm very grateful for your understanding. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed.
Hi, I'm Karan Thapar. Over the last few years, I hope you've been watching my program, The Interview on the Wire. During that period, I've interviewed doctors, politicians, businessmen, scientists, authors, and even the occasional Nobel laureate. For me, it's been exciting. I hope it's been enjoyable for you. But these, as you know, are tough times, and if this program is going to remain bold, independent, and sometimes even defiant, then I think we need your support. At the end of the day, it's a truism, but editorial independence is best defended by the viewers. So if you would like this program to remain the way it is, forthright, outspoken, and interesting, then would you consider supporting us? All you have to do is to click on the description at the bottom. But more than anything else, I hope you will continue to watch The Interview. Your viewership means an awful lot to me.